All right, 216 Papa Bravo here with part 5 of reloading. We're going to talk about the cost of doing business, the cost of reloading, the cost of doing the job. But first, a few notes. First off, do some research. Don't just take this for granted that I'm right or anybody else is right on the web here. We all do what we do because it's fun, it's enjoyable. But do your own research. Find out for sure for yourself what loads you want to do, if you want to reload, how much it's going to cost to get into it. Do the things you need to do to find out everything you need to know about reloading. If you have a friend that does it, go watch him do it. If you have a friend of a friend that does it, go watch him do it. Don't just take it for granted that you're going to step in and be able to do this without making mistakes. The best thing you can do is learn. You do the research. Buy yourself a good book. Understand what the book has in it. There's a lot of information in these books about reloading. It tells you the complete guide, the whole process of how to do it. So get one of the reloading books. This is a Sierra book. Let me get it closed here for you. It's a brand new manual. It's a 2011 version, I believe, edition 5, 5th printing. And it has every kind of load you ever want to have in it. The next thing you want to do is have your materials ready. Find the press you want to use. You can use a single stage press if you're loading bottleneck cases like this. That's called a bottleneck case. If you're doing straight wall cases, I don't have one here, but do a straight wall cases, which is like pistol ammunition, 30 carbine, that sort of thing. You're going to want to have maybe a progressive press. Those kind of things do cost more, but you need to consider what you're going to load, how much you're going to shoot, all the details that go into doing this hobby. And it is a hobby, not a profession. You can't really sell your stuff. It's your liability if you do. I wouldn't recommend it. Use it for yourself, but be careful when you do it. Next thing is, when you do your research, when you look these things up in the books, get the right information for the right shell, the right bullet you're shooting. So if you're shooting a .308 Winchester, make sure you have the right bullet weight, and then find a powder and bullet combination that are going to work for you. Okay, most books have the powder from the hottest powder to the coolest powder, and they do have a powder chart. It's available online that you can find out what that is. So be sure to weigh everything, make sure your settings are correct, make sure it's all good. Don't really get hung up on one particular brand of bullets or powder or primers. The recommended settings in here are what they use to get this data. Now, if you have this is a 22 caliber bullet here. This happens to be a Sierra. If you have it in another brand, the same diameter, the same bullet weight, the same kind of boat tail, the same rules apply. Okay, you can use another bullet the same weight with these settings. Okay. Same with the powders. You can get, this is the IMR powders, which is owned by Hodgdon now. You have Reloader 7, Reloader 15, which is an Alliant powder. There's Green Dot, Blue Dot, a whole bunch of Hercules powder. Every brand has their own particular styles of being made, the way they're designed, the way they're meant to burn, everything. So find out what you want to do first before you go buy any of the equipment or the components. In your research, talk to your friends, see if they're reloading, find out what they're using for a particular load, what works best for them. Find out the particulars about your rifle or pistol or shotgun, however you're going to load. If you're loading for a rifle, you might have a particular load for your 30-06, okay, that works really well in that particular weapon. All right. You may have a particular bullet weight, a particular bullet speed that you're shooting for. If you're shooting like a 7mm Magnum, there's again a certain bullet weight that works really good with that rifle, that bullet, that barrel twist, the whole thing. So do some research on that, find out what works. Like I told you earlier, generally I will load down, not up, but down for a particular bullet weight. to start out with. And if I like that particular speed, maybe I'll experiment maybe a half a grain or a third of a grain or 2/10 of a grain to find out what I want to load with. And if you do mess up a case, don't worry about it. It's not that much money. One of these things, yeah, okay, it's an expense. It's something you have to, worry about, the case length and all the stuff that goes into it. But if you mess one up, don't try to shoot it. Don't try to take it apart unless you have the proper tools. Discard it properly. Okay, do not try to shoot something that's messed up. That's my best piece of advice for doing this. And the last thing before we get into the components and the cost is, if you think you're going to save a lot of money with this, it doesn't quite work out that way. What you end up doing is shooting more with the same amount of money you had to shoot with factory ammo. So say you're spending $100 a month on ammo, which for some might be a lot, some might be hardly anything. But say you're spending $100 a month on ammo and you get into reloading, you're going to spend that same $100 on components, which will give you basically more shots for the same $100. Okay, so it all weighs out. It all comes out together with the reloading. If you don't count the cost of your equipment and you factor that in, you can see how it's going to save you money. And while we're on that subject of what it costs to do this, I've kind of rigged up a chart here. I don't know if you can see that clearly or not. But what I've done is worked up a cost sheet for a 270 Winchester. And this is an example of a 3,000 feet per second with IMR 4895 and 130 grain soft point boat tail. Okay, you can see here that each cost, the powder, the bullets, the primers, and if you have to buy a case, that's the cost. So if you have to cost a reload of an entire case from scratch, if you have to buy all the components, it's going to cost you around 96 to 99 cents a piece to load that 270 round. Now again, if you're loading a 243, 300 Savage, some other things, you can see that they're smaller cases. They don't hold as much. You get more loads per pound, which will reduce that cost. The bullets remain about the same, the primers remain about the same, and the cases will remain relatively the same. Now, if you don't count the cost of the case, you can see that in this instance, it's going to cost around 61 cents, 62 cents per load, which is about 2/3 of the cost of a brand new shell. If you figure a box of these at retail, it's about $20, $22, something like that. Basically a buck a round, $1.20 a round. You can save about half doing the reloading. Okay, so you can see here, if you got the new case, it's going to, what cost per 100 is. If you have their own cases, the brass, we're talking about cases, you can see that it's $61.90 for 100 rounds. Okay, or about 12 bucks a box, which is about 2/3 of what the factory ammo is going to cost you. So that's just a quick rough estimate of what's going to run. Your combination may vary. You're going to have mess ups. You can't get exactly that many loads out of each pound of powder. You should get that many loads out of your box of bullets. You may lose a primer or two, and you're going to lose a case or two through cracks and misfunctions and all that kind of thing where you've messed up a case. So you got to round it up. You got to figure out what you're going to do. So again, if you're loading a larger one, like say a 300 Win mag or a 7mm mag, this cost is going to go up because you're going to use more powder than this calls for. So that's the cost of what you're going to save on that particular, on the reloading components themselves. By the time you buy the primers, the bullets, the powder, and if you have your own cases, for instance, that's how you save money, is when you have your own brass. Now these loads, like I talked about before, the brass lasts about 5 to 7 times without doing much to the case. Now some guys ask me about trimming the case, making sure they're long enough. Well, okay, what I do is I measure the case, the overall case length, to make sure they're within specifications. If they pass that test, I use them. If they don't pass that test, I don't use them. Okay? Then when I get enough of them, I'll trim them up, get them the proper length, overall length, and then if there's cases still in good shape, I'll use that brass case again. Okay? Now, as far as the equipment goes, huge variety of equipment. You can get the RCBS rock chucker press that I've used for the single stage press, which is what I use on these bottleneck cases, okay? That press and the basic kit runs about 200 and I want to say 289. They have a rock chucker master kit, which includes a few more items, which you can get, and I've seen them in Cabela's and other places for about $329, depends on the time of year. If you get a progressive press, and I'll get this up where you can see it here, they make a variety of different presses here. The basic press kit's about 200 bucks. The master kit, these are retail prices by the way, so you can see that they're retail, which I recommend this 10-piece master kit here, because it has all these items plus this. Okay, then they also make progressive presses, which is what we talked about for pistol rounds or any straight wall jackets. They're really more efficient to use because each pull of the handle after you get it loaded up creates a shell, rather than having to do it 3 or 4 times to make one of these into a case, into a fully loaded shell. So you can see the advantage of having one pull produce a shell versus say 4 to 5 or 3 to 4 pulls making one shell in this. They're almost as accurate as what I do. I go for accuracy, so I want to weigh each powder load. I want to make sure that each shell is properly loaded, so I do it one at a time. Okay, for bottleneck cases, best way to go. You can do it on progressive, but it's a little tougher. I just wouldn't recommend it. But if you're doing pistol ammo, man, you want to have a progressive press. Now this is this one listed here is a Pro 2000, which is an RCBS press, and you'll see on the net or on the YouTube especially, guys recommend using Doin presses, and they are great presses. Now you're going to spend a little more money up front, but you're going to have a much better press, more designed for the progressive use, so that each time you pull the handle, you make a fully loaded round of ammunition. And I have a few other things in here that you're going to need if you do this press. You probably want a powder trickler. That's that little thing I dialed the powder out with. The 2-die sets, which are good for bottlenecks, are around $36 a set. The carbide sets, which are the pistol sets, are $55, and they will work on the progressive presses. The die sets, by the way, are all standardized. I think the only one that's different, there's one company that makes different sizes, and I can't think of it offhand, but almost all of them are made, I think it's Doin actually has their own sizes. But everybody else, RCBS, Lee, Hornaday, you name it, they use the standard size for the presses. You need a shell holder to hold the shell in the press, which ties right around here. I'd recommend some kind of a case cleaning system. They run about $100. The media is $15 to $25. That's the corncob media or the walnut media you put in the tumbler to make the cases nice and bright like this. See, that's probably a twice fired case. You wouldn't hardly know it. Nice and shiny. You should have some kind of a caliper, a dial caliper or a digital caliper. And you don't have to buy an expensive one. You just want to have it so it measures the accurate length of the cartridge. Okay? That case needs to be, an overall length can't be exceeded. Otherwise it won't fit in your chamber correctly. So I definitely recommend you get some kind of a measuring tool to measure those up and make sure they'll fit your chamber. Electronic scale is optional. You don't have to have that. They're a little pricey. They run between $40 to $125 extra. Then it comes down to your powder and primer, bullets, brass. As you can see, the powder runs, it depends on what kind it is, but most of it runs around $25 to say $35 a pound. Most primers run about say $3.59 to $4 per 100. The bullets are, I've seen them cheap as $20 to about $50 per 100. Depends on the kind you get and who makes it and bullet weight and all that stuff. Obviously, the smaller the bullet, the less it costs. The larger the bullet, the more it costs, because it obviously costs them more to make it. So there's a huge variety in bullets. And the brass, this part here, the empty cartridge, runs anywhere from $29 per 100 for 223 ammo up to around $50 for the larger 7mm mag or 300 Win or that kind of stuff. So you can see you're going to spend some dollars to get into this hobby if you don't already have some equipment. And if you want to upgrade, buy small, upgrade as you go, you can do that. It just takes longer to produce your ammo. So if you bought everything that's recommended, you'd be spending about $600, $700 to get your basic equipment. And that would cover everything you need to get started reloading. You'd also have some basic expenses, such as your work desk, your workspace, making sure you have enough light, enough space, room to have it, those kind of things which are incidental to this, but you really have to have some place to put this to make it all work. There's your kind of layout of basic ideas of what it's going to take to make this work. You're looking at saving some money if you want to do this properly. You can save, again, if you just reload a little bit, it probably isn't worth your while, if you're only shooting like 1 or 2 boxes a year. But if you're going through a box of 30-06 rounds a month, you need to reload, because you're going to have a hefty expense, at $22 a box, and 1 per month, that's 12 boxes, adds up in a hurry. The 223, you can probably get it pretty cheap, but if you enjoy the reloading hobby, you can custom load this stuff. You don't have to depend on factory loads. You can get the precise bullet weight you want. You don't have to worry about what the manufacturer makes or what they have for powder, or what they have for their speed, etc. You can custom. And that's one of the benefits, the biggest benefit, I think, of having your own reloading setup. So there you are, some ideas about the cost of doing this, about the cost of doing business, about the expense of getting started, and what it takes to get started. I hope you guys enjoyed the videos, enjoyed making them for you. If you really like to see more of this kind of stuff, let me know, leave some notes below. I'd sure appreciate it. And please subscribe and be safe out there. Papa Bravo, signing out.